Meat City, baby.
Hello and welcome back to Meat City Gaming. JD here with another episode of Battle Bites here in World of Tanks, and today we're going to wrap up the Defender of the Fatherland mission. We're going to give a little bit of our thoughts and feelings on how the operation went. We'll highlight some of the good things. There were some in this operation, and then we'll also dive into the bad things about the operation. And at the end of the video, we're going to give some suggestions for how maybe the operation could be changed in the future. We know Wargaming likes to go back to similar style operations that they've used in the past, so when they consider that for this style of mission, hopefully some of these suggestions will get thought of and put into play and improve the next one of these missions when it comes up again. First, I want to start off by saying thank you to all of my old subs who have been here from the beginning. I appreciate your support always, and welcome to the many new subs. The one great thing about this event for me was a ton of new subscribers. We went from 300 to 400 in about 3 weeks, so I'm really excited for that. Welcome to the channel. In the future, I will, of course, be covering all of the events that happen in the World of Tanks console game, just like I did for the Fatherland event. So if you liked that coverage, stay tuned when the new events come up. The Final 4 event going on, I will be covering those in a similar fashion. And in the meantime, between events, we'll sprinkle in some hopefully fun and entertaining battle replays as well. So, the Defender of the Fatherland operation, it's over. Feel free to share your story with me. I know a lot of you were going through some painful experiences in terms of trying to get those medals from your loot crates. But now that it's over, let me know how it turned out. For me, personally, I got the tank. I'll flash it up on screen. It's there. I ended up getting my 5th drop on my 138th loot drop. So just shy of 140 loot drops. And that was probably around 180, give or take, total games, including the ones where I did not earn a loot drop. And I got the tank with 2 hours left on the operation. And I didn't feel joy when I saw that final medal drop. I just felt relief. And I don't know if that's the experience that Wargaming was hoping we'd have, but it was certainly my experience. So I'd love to hear how it turned out for you guys as well. Now, I am, just as many of you are, really upset about how this operation went. It was a horrendous experience. I'm really mad about how a lot of aspects of this operation went down. But I am going to try to keep the tone of this video at least somewhat cordial and somewhat positive, because if it just turns into a rage and a curse fest, then if by chance somebody at Wargaming sees the video, they will dismiss it out of hand. So if you want to rage, go ahead and rage. I suggest you do it in the comments below, not on the official website. You don't want to get yourself suspended or banned, but if you want to rage in my comment section, go ahead and I will commiserate there with you. Feel free to do that. So one of the suggestions I have for how you can let out your rage is to share what painful experiences in your life you would rather relive than play through this operation again. For me, it's a long list, but certainly on there is the experience of getting my wisdom teeth pulled out and my first girlfriend breaking up with me. Yeah, I'd rather go through those events again than go through this operation again. Feel free to share yours below. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's get to what was good about this operation. I do think there were some things, and I want to encourage them to show up again in future operations. And if I miss anything here, feel free to let me know as well. What do you think was good about the way that this operation was done? For me, I do like that they set a low skill bar to participate in the operation. 500 damage in a battle to start participating, to get a chance to get this tank. That's great. It's fun and fine when they're setting it so that you've got a place basically first, second, or third to really be earning the points you need to get the tanks in terms of damage or XP per battle. But that's only 3 out of 15 every battle. So the players at the lower end of the spectrum are going to suffer a little bit. And so I'm okay with setting a low bar to entry into the operation to participate, but I would balance that by saying then set a high skill for those who master the operation. You can allow people to get in for a low participation, for a low effort, but if you have the high skill, the high effort, then you should be able to excel and master the operation faster than those that you set that low bar for. Second, no time gating. That was fantastic in this operation. Throughout all of the previous operations, I believe, without exception, maybe one of the first one or two they allowed this as well. There was no time restriction to completing the operation. You could have, in theory, and some people did, completed the operation and got the tank on the first day of the operation. In the past, we had a chain of 5 operations. You had to complete all 5, but the last one, the 5th one, didn't unlock until 2 or 3 days before the event ended. It was a 2-week-long event, and this was just a 1-week-long event. So it was less time grinding in terms of the 1 week to 2 week. I liked that. And there was no restriction on you can't start the last part of the mission until at the very end of the chain. And usually at the very end of the chain, they set that requirement the highest. It was usually you had to get the most XP in those final 3 days. Nothing like that here. So that's good. I would love to see that woven into the other operations that we have for free tanks and operations in the future. I really did appreciate that aspect of the operation. And then also the loot drops, the non-Motherland Medal loot drops were pretty good. I had said in my intro video that I would like if there was some kind of boost, XP or silver boost for playing your Soviet tanks during the operation, kind of like a little on-track event. And we got that. I mean, the 1,000 silver and the 2,000 silver loot drops, yeah, you weren't happy when you saw those. But there were a ton of good accelerant for your crew training or your tank training or silver multipliers, I think, were in there. So you could have made a lot of progress on some tanks if you wanted to on your Soviet tanks while playing this event. If you were getting those loot drops and you weren't getting the medals, there was some good stuff for advancing tanks. I know I certainly advanced 1 or 2 lines that I didn't think I'd be advancing anytime soon just throughout the course of this event. And so, unfortunately, that's where the list ends, right? That was what I thought was the good that came out of the event. Again, if I missed anything, please feel free to include it in a comment below. So now we're going to switch into the negative aspects of the event, and with that, I'm going to weave in how to make improvements for the future. And of course, the biggest problem with this event was the mystery, withholding the information, not knowing what the % chance of the drop rate on the medals was. And because you didn't know that, it was just a demoralizing experience, right? I mean, people love the XP bar in World of Warcraft because you could see your progress. It was addicting to watch that bar progress up, hit the next level. You knew as you were advancing how far you were from the next reward. And that was missing here. You didn't have any sense of I played my first 40 loot drops without a medal. And I had no idea what the drop rate was. Could it have been 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 100? I mean, people start thinking crazy things when they're just pounding their head into the wall and not seeing any progress. We want that visual progress. We want that feedback. We want to know the rules of the game that we're playing. Again, it's a game. Tell us the rules that we're playing by. Part, I think, of the issue here is there seems to be a common thread from wargaming to highlight punishment for bad behavior instead of rewarding good behavior. So one way that you can do that, we had the post from Pain God during the event, and he was kind of responding to people, probably like me, asking for the information regarding the percentage of chance for the loot drops. And one of the comments I think that Pain God made was alluding to punishment or the price being high for people who were getting their 500 damage and then YOLOing and either committing suicide or somehow letting themselves die. And he kind of alluded to, oh, well, if you do that, we'll punish you. Or if you do that, the price may be higher than if you didn't do that. And again, instead of that attitude, I would suggest taking the attitude of, all right, think of it this way. Players are going to do whatever will get them through the task that you set in the most efficient way possible, and in the most efficient way possible for the most valuable resource we have. The most valuable resource I have is time. So when you give me a mission, I'm going to try and get through it the fastest way possible. And for some people, that meant getting your damage and then YOLOing and then destroying your tank. Now, you could punish that. You could say, well, we're going to track, and if you get 500 damage and then get destroyed within a minute after that, you won't get a loot drop, right? You could come up with some kind of system that punished that behavior. But instead, what I would say is find ways to incentivize the way you want us to play. Good play. So one suggestion is there was 500 damage got you a loot drop, and then it didn't matter what you did the rest of the game. Well, maybe for every 500 damage on top of that, you got an additional loot drop. Then you would have an incentive to stay in the game. You wouldn't go kill yourself, because then you'd have to re-queue and rebattle, and you lose the tank you're playing until it's done finishing up the current battle that it's in. You'd stay in trying to get another 500 damage and another 500 damage. It would reward good behavior without punishing bad behavior. So that way, you're encouraging the good behavior that you want to see. In a similar vein, give out a loot drop for assistance damage. So if you don't want people hoarding damage, fighting with each other to get that 500 damage, give a loot drop for 500 damage. Then give a loot drop for 500 assistance damage, for 500 tracking damage. Give a loot drop for surviving the battle. Give a loot drop for winning the battle. Right? These are all things that would encourage people to play well, give them a bonus for mastering the game. This goes back to that rewarding people who are really good at the game while still having the low bar to entry. You do 500 damage, you get a loot drop. That's great. You're a low skill player, you can participate in the game. If you're a Unicum, well, maybe you can get 5 loot drops per game, and that's okay too. Your Unicums are going to play the game anyway. You don't need to force them to play and have a bad experience to get their time in the game. They're playing anyway, but let them play their way. Let them use their skill, reward them for it, give them more drops more quickly without having to tie everyone down and bog the experience down based on trying to punish bad behavior. Another thing is cap the maximum number of games that are needed to acquire the tank. So if you had said, we're going to hide the drop rate, we're not going to let you know how many drops it takes to get the tank, but anybody who gets 200 loot drops will get the tank. We guarantee it. It'll unlock automatically on your 200th loot drop, right? It could have been a second operation. The first operation could have been get the 5 medals and you earn the tank. The second operation could have been get 200 loot drops and you get the tank. And whichever one you complete first, you get the tank and then you're done. So again, just another way of preventing frustration, allowing people to know what the path is, where the goal is, so that they know how far along the path they are without having to say, well, I've got 3 medals, I've played 50 games without getting my 4th, I'll play 51 now, but there's no better chance this game than there was for the last 50. This way they know every time they're making progress. Let us see our progress. We want to see it, we want to know it. And then finally, another thing that I had touched on in an earlier video, give a discount for the tank based on the number of completed loot drops. In this case, we had the 5 medals that you needed. If somebody got 1 medal, let them buy the tank when the event's over for 20% off. 2 medals, 40%. 3 medals, 60%, right? I imagine right now, I mean, you guys have the numbers, I don't, but anybody who played through this event, got 3 or 4 of the medals, had a terrible time, played 300 games, didn't get the tank, wasn't like, boy, I really had a great time, I'm going to go get that tank now, and bought it. I can't think that there was many people that did that, but at the same time, if they got 4 medals, got close and didn't get the tank, but that earned them 80% off, well, then you're still going to get some gold out of that. You'll still get a purchase from a lot more people. At least that's how I see that coming out. So I think that's going to wrap up the video. I talked about everything I wanted to cover, the good and the bad, and some potential improvements for the future. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. Hopefully you had, at the end of the day, an okay experience. I know some of you guys are just going to be frustrated because you put in a ton of time and effort and ended up not getting the tank at the end of the day. But hopefully this is, it's the first time they've done this and they'll improve it in the future. I'm optimistic. I hope that that's true. I think that they heard our message, even though they didn't really communicate that they heard our message. We kind of got the chastising email from Pain God rather than an encouraging email from our community mod saying, hey, we hear you, we're working on this, we'll make it better in the future. And if you're going to do that, feel free to reach out to some members of your community. Let them know what you're thinking of doing for an event. Talk about it with us. We'd love to give some feedback and have some input before the event releases. That'd be one way to kind of blunt the dagger. If we know what's coming, we can talk about it and we can maybe see some issues that come up that you guys might not see inside your own little bubble there. So thank you for joining me. Hopefully you guys found this useful or cathartic in some way. We are all going to put this event behind us. I am probably going to put this tank in my garage and not really play it much because I don't want to think about this event any more than you guys do. So thank you for joining me. Please feel free to subscribe to Meat City Gaming for future World of Tanks content. I'll see you next time.